Let's go to line 5 and Tate in Texas. Hello, Tate. You're on the Glenn Beck program.
Hi, Mr. Beck.
How are you?
First of all, I just wanted to, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much because if you were instrumental in my awakening, and if my parents hadn't loved you so much, then I would have never started watching your show. I would have never been exposed to the amazing books that I was able to read to really open my eyes. So I want to thank you first and foremost.
Thank you, sir.
Now, I'm a very positive person. I've seen and I know the value of positive energy in one's life, as I know you do.
Yes.
And I'm finding it more and more difficult and trying not to get, I don't even know the word, despair. I mean, just anger. It's just...
Anger. May we quote Yoda? Just, go ahead. Sure. He's trying to remember it.
Fear leads to anger.
Despair.
Anger leads to hatred. Hatred leads to despair.
No, that's not what Yoda said. Can't you get that one right? Out of all...
Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering. Suffering. Yes, that's what suffering.
Yes, go ahead.
Well, that's pretty much Yoda.
That's pretty much where you are. Which part of that Yoda food chain are you at right now?
Oh, I don't know. It's a myriad of all of them, I think, combined.
You know, we were talking about this just a minute ago, and I'll let you get to the rest of your point, but we were talking about this earlier. It's why none of us could watch the State of the Union last night. We just had to listen to the clips, and we had to really listen together. We were kind of like holding on to each other this morning and going, okay, are you ready? Here comes one more clip. Because you get so angry, and you just can't go down that path, because like Yoda said,
fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering. Suffering.
Yeah.
Okay.
I work night, so I wasn't able to watch it. I'm pretty thankful that I didn't, because I don't think I would have a TV today if I would have watched it. But basically the answer that, and I understand you, I guess we could call our congressmen, call our senators, but the fact they just passed overwhelmingly this NDAA that, gives the indefinite detention of American citizens possibly.
I know.
They wanted to pass SOPA, and unless, because we all stood up to it, and basically the blackouts on Wikipedia.
Wait a minute. I want you to say this again. Wait a minute. What happened? They wanted to pass the SOPA, but what happened?
There were blackouts. Wikipedia basically had a blackout for 24 hours that basically you went to Wikipedia and looked something up.
And so wait, what? I know that story, but so what happened?
You missed the most important part of what you said.
I know you missed the most important part. Because we all stood up. Now you just gave your power to Wikipedia, but you said because we all stood up, they didn't pass it.
Of course, and I understand that, but
that's the answer. It is. The answer it is.
They could just change the language or change the name of the bill, and that's what they're known to do, and pass it, on New Year's Eve or something along those lines. And then so
pass it they could, but stand up you must.
There's one man that talks about everything that you espouse and that you hold so dear and that we all do. There's one man that stands lonely on that stage and gets ignored and gets ridiculed, and it tears at my heart.
Afraid I was that coming this is.
Okay, no wait.
Yes.
Yoda, put a sock in it for a second. Here's the thing. You're going to say Ron Paul. He doesn't stand for everything that I believe and hold dear. He stands for about half of what I believe and hold dear. He stands against the other half. So I'm with you on, for instance, I don't think there's anybody as good on the growing power of government, on the dangers that this government could pose to its citizens. He's right there, and I don't think there's anybody stronger than that. He's farther than I am on some things, but I'd rather go and give him the benefit of the doubt than give these clowns in Washington the benefit of the doubt. But so I just want to make sure you're clear that he's not. It's not like I'm selling out my values. I'd be selling out half of my values if I did support him. We all have to make a compromise. We're not going to get. Jesus ain't coming to rule the earth. Well, at least, what time is it? At least not right yet. And so we're going to have to compromise and say, okay, which one is the best fit? He's not my best fit, but if he's yours, that's great.
I understand, and I just wanted to basically, there's a movement growing, and you had a lot to do with it. You had a whole lot to do with it, and I call it an awakening. But there's basically we're seeing past some of the lies and some of the things that we've been fed, and so we go out to vote, and I don't know if y'all heard about this or not, but so we go out to vote, and we want to believe in the system still, we really do, but lo and behold, 953 dead people end up voting in South Carolina. And so we're just, and I talked to my dad about it, and he just says, yeah, there's been voter fraud throughout the eons of American history. And I think, does that make it right? Does that make it right? I mean, when are we going to stand up and say enough's enough?
Well, you're assuming these dead people fraudulently voted, and they could have easily made it. We don't know.
I'm watching this series called Merlin with my family from the BBC. It's great, and I've seen what dead people can do. Have you seen that? You saw that series?
Yes.
Yeah, you've seen what dead people can do. You don't. Who are you to accuse these dead people of doing something fraudulent? If they're dead, so be it. Who are you to judge?
Why are you disenfranchising
Why are
the
you
dead?
judging the dead? I think the Bible says only He will judge the dead.
Well, it's Obi-Wan Kenobi. I mean, he came back and he was there, and he could have easily voted in that election.
Yeah, you'd have a problem with Obi-Wan Kenobi? Would you have a problem with him coming and voting? He said, go ahead, strike me down. You'll make me more powerful. He was he was the founder of Acorn.
I don't know if that works.
Strike me down. I'll be more powerful dead.
This is how we avoid despair, by the way.
Yeah.
We just mock and belittle your pain. That's all.
That's it.
That's all.
We try to feel superior, like we're not as much pain as you are.
But we are.
Look,
and this is how we deal with it.
Yeah, Tate. Look, here's the thing, man. You can't lose. You can't lose hope. We're not all going to get the perfect candidate. We're going to disagree with each other from time to time. But there are millions of Americans who feel exactly like you do, and we may vehemently disagree. If you look at what George Washington and Thomas Paine agreed on, in the end, it wasn't a lot. In fact, Thomas Paine and George Washington never spoke to each other in the end. Thomas Paine wrote a letter about to George Washington and said, out of all the people that could betray us, I'd never believe that it would be you, George Washington, that would betray us and our country in the Revolution. I mean, it was bad blood.
It was ugly.
It was really ugly, and they never spoke again. They're both founders, and they both were really important to the process. If it wasn't for Thomas Paine, George Washington may not have been able to hold the troops together to be able to cross the Delaware. And if it wasn't for George Washington, Thomas Paine would have put us down the crapper in the end, because we would have had almost no government, and he would have missed the point that God was important, which he did in the French Revolution, which led to the falling out between the two. So they were both really important to American freedom and the freedom of the world. That's the way I feel about the people who don't sell out their principles. You may be somebody who sees Ron Paul stuff and say it's all great. It's all great. I don't. But George Washington needed Thomas Paine, and Thomas Paine needed George Washington. It's a good combination. That's what a melting pot is all about. We find our principles, and we stick to our principles, even if we disagree with each other vehemently at times. The principles that we are against far outnumber the principles that we are for.
Yeah, and that's what I think, like Ron Paul, a lot of times we do have problems with. But I find him to be largely a positive figure in the Republican Party.
Me too.
Because he makes people who were kind of big government answer to that stuff.
Yes.
He makes the debate kind of lean libertarian. And, the issue, of course, when you look at between foreign policy and economics, it's like with a guy like Rick Santorum, I'm like 80% agree in both categories. With Ron Paul, I might be 95 in economics and 0 in foreign policy. It's not about we're not giving up on our values. Those are our values.
Yeah, and I want to make sure that you understand what I said. That things that we disagree on far outnumber. What I mean by that is the things that are happening in our country with these socialists, Marxists, communists. Those are far bigger. That we've got to unite against that stuff. And there might be just a few things, like, I don't know, freedom, liberty, the Constitution. that we unite on, and a few things that we disagree on, but our strength comes from just those few things that have real, deep, right to the core meaning to all of us, except for those who wish to destroy it. And we have to unite on those things.
May I please ask one more question, Mr. Beck?
Yes.
Okay. Now, I the foreign policy thing, that's his number one detractor, and I understand where people are coming from in a way. However, basically, it's just a non-interventionist policy. It doesn't say not go to war.
No, it's not.
Operation Ajax happened in 1950,
Look,
and we've been meddling ever since.
I understand. Tate, listen to me. Listen to me. It's not just non-interventionist. I'm with Ron Paul on pull the troops home. Get them out of Germany. Get them out of South Korea. I'm done being the policeman of the world. I'm with you on that. But he does not recognize the threat of radical Islam. He says, will you read what they say? Yes, I have read what they've said. I bet you I've read more of what they've said than Ron Paul has read what they said. I know what they said, and I know what they are saying currently. They are looking to destroy the West and the Western way of life. You don't disregard the new Nazi movement. And the new Nazi movement is the Islamist movement in the Middle East. That is the new Nazi movement. I'm sorry, but you give that no oxygen ever, and you don't dismiss it. Have we made mistakes? Yes. Is our interventionist policies, have they caused us problem? Yes. Should we stop them? Yes. Should we ignore the Islamists and people like Ahmadinejad who say I'm going to vaporize every Jew on the planet? Absolutely not. There is a difference between those two. Thanks for your call. Back in just a minute.
So that our government is linked.
This is...
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about.
pea soup?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about.
Pea soup?
You get rid of these speed bump. Hollian zombie.
Yes, go ahead.
My golly, he can get a lot done.
That's what I'm saying. If you
A
just
lot done.
We're just talking about enabling him to do what's right.
Okay, now listen.
Just enable him.
We had a call from a listener about a half hour ago who said he's really depressed because he's looking at these things and he's trying not to get discouraged.
Yeah, but it was all a trick because he was a Ron Paul supporter who has totally drunk the Kool-Aid. And he is
Yes, go
absolutely
ahead, keep
a
talking.
Paulian zombie.
Yes, go ahead.
And it's not. Well, I understand to a certain extent your argument on foreign policy, but all Ron is, all Dr. Paul is a non-interventionist.
Keep dividing. Yes, do it.
That's not what he is. That's not what Ron Paul is.
Okay, listen. This guy called up, and I thought he was actually very nice and reasonable, but Pat is...
Oh, because he
Pat's a
snowed
hater.
you. He
Pat's a hater.
snowed
Oh,
you.
stop it. So...
You did. You were snowed.
No, I wasn't. No, I wasn't. I told him clearly that he was wrong on foreign policy. Let's move on. What the point of the phone call, I thought, was he's depressed because he feels like he knows what's happening on television tonight at 5 o'clock is a very important show that you will not believe, and I guarantee you, read Slate magazine, how they talk about how they have to smear people who are into conspiracies. I guarantee you this will be called a conspiracy show tonight. It is 1984. What the government can and is doing on total surveillance. The government has the ability, and they are monitoring every aspect of your life. Now, maybe it's not you yet, but you will not believe the capability that they have in what they're doing. It's truly frightening. It'll be called a conspiracy theory, but that's what they do. That's what they do. That's Cass Sunstein in a nutshell. Now, the guy called up and said, you say these things, and I get depressed because I don't know what to do. Let me just read a couple of things.